Yeah. Yeah. Well,
for now.
we'll talk about that because I do want to start doing this regularly, and we're going to set up a regular schedule so that's good for you and it's good for me because I thought this would just be a great way. Oh, we are talking right now while this is going. Thought this would be a great way to start off. So, yeah.
A Noble Media Group member.
America's known our share of tyrants. In response to tyranny, we created one of the greatest guiding documents ever written by mankind. We stood for what was right. We've also made mistakes, but we corrected those mistakes by fighting for what was right both inside our borders and beyond.
I think it's
Today, America faces another challenge: Christian nationalism. Misguided faith and misguided patriotism justifying misguided deeds.
Lord, turn the hearts of those who are in power and position to make decisions.
That's not who we are, America. The Constitution is as true today as the day it was ratified. America stands for freedom, and America stands for doing what's right. And it's time we start restoring the American dream. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much. Welcome to Restoring the American Dream. I'm so glad you joined us today. If you're listening to us, watching us for the first time, it's exciting. This is a dream that Brian and I have been talking about for a minute, and I'm excited to be able to dialogue with you and get into things that I believe are essential to restoring the American dream. You know, the American dream is rooted in the belief that each and every person was created with dignity and endowed by the Creator with inalienable rights that cannot be taken from by government or by politics, but can only be given by, or that were given by God and can only be reduced or renounced by that individual. And so that's the belief. But the American dream is the belief that we collectively have a common vision in that freedom and we can pursue it together as Americans. And so there's a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of subjects we want to cover. But tonight, I'm so glad that we can talk about the subject of
Hmm.
can hard
Hmm.
work still pay off in America? Do Americans still believe that hard work pays off?
Wow. Well, it's interesting because, and I know you and I have had some brief conversations about this, and I'm actually putting up a slide right now that you and I had discussed, and I'm going to read it for everybody here because it was just so depressing, Michael. But let me just read it for those that are just listening or can't read the slide because there's a lot of data on that slide. But it was the latest polling that came out, and it said that less than half of Americans say you can be successful if you're willing to work hard. That is terrible, but let me tell you where it gets even worse. Because if you're between 18 and 31 or 34, then in 2016, you saw that number as 67 to 69% believed if you were 18 to 34 in 2016 believed that you could get ahead. Today, that number is in the low 40s. My goodness, what are we doing to our children, Michael?
You know, it's the hardest thing in the world to work hard and not feel like you're going anywhere. It just, it's like that dream deferred. You feel like there's nothing worth, there's
Mm,
nothing that you're doing that's going to help you get ahead. And that's a losing proposition because you don't work as hard, you're not as fruitful or productive, you don't come up with the creative ideas. It's all about a survival mentality rather than a prosperous mentality. And so you're not a great team member, you're not a great community member, you know. And America, the American dream was really built on hope. It was built on hope, not in necessarily that person in the first generation or second generation, but it was built on the hope that we collectively, if hard work, if I worked hard enough and pursued my dreams, then I could be anything I wanted to be. And yeah, okay, sometimes people say, well, isn't that kind of a superficial dream? But really, that's really what the American dream is based on. That I don't consider superficial. I consider it essential for a nation to continue to move forward as we have been. And our numbers tell us now this is not just about politics, but it's about
No.
hope.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah. Yeah.
if our hope is diminished, if our hope is destroyed, then honest to goodness, we don't have anything. We know what the numbers are telling us at the gas tank. We know what that the war is devastating us. We know that, and then we look at our politicians, right? And we say, okay, if voting is the way forward, if electing better officials is the way forward, but it's hopeless, then nobody really cares. And if we start seeing a diminished voter turnout in the midst of this depression, then we are a depressed nation. I don't want to say we're in depression, but we are a depressed
Yeah.
people that are trying to move forward this democracy, and that just won't work at all.
I wonder, and this didn't, again, this is not a partisan issue. I really don't believe it is. This is a pox on both parties, if I could say that instead. But I want to share a slide and ask you, Michael, and maybe our audience out there, you know, are our kids, and they're not kids anymore at this point, but 18 to 34s, are they inheriting the same country and the same opportunity that you and I got? So let me just read this slide for the folks that are either can't read it or just listening to the show. So college to well, let me back up. So in the last 40 years, the inflation for the United States, the overall CPI, has increased 198%. Okay, so what would that be? Basically doubled. I guess that
So
would be,
yeah.
or tripled maybe. So, but here's the interesting other aspect of this slide. In that same last 40 years, college tuition has gone up 672%. Holy cow. That is not tracking at all in the same way. So if you're in that age group, okay, and maybe that's why some of the 16, to 34 things and how much these things have changed, because if you're in that age group, you're going to be in debt for a long time if you go to school, and God help us if you don't go to school. I'm not pushing or anything against the trades and so forth. I'm not doing that. But there's a whole lot of people that simply do not, very intelligent young men and women that should and want to go to school, but they can't do it because they're going to be in debt for the rest of their lives.
And if a college education is unobtainable, and if that pursuit is unobtainable, then the hopelessness that sets in really destroys our future. Well, here's the thing that Brian and I look at when I see how much college tuition has gone up. I'm saying, hey, where does that money go? If you break that down,
Mm-hmm.
it's not all going, a lot of it is going to faculty. Okay, let's just say they got a boost or a bump.
Yeah.
But but those colleges and universities have huge endowments,
Yeah.
tax-free buildings.
Yeah.
They're not paying taxes on their income. They're what are they doing with the money? And they get these huge grants now. And thank God that the Department of Education is cracking down on foreign dollars,
Right.
on dollars, to for these grants. But they're building these incredible war chests, and they're not at war. They're building these incredible amounts of money and milking their students. I won't go on record as saying, which university this is, but there is a prominent university, Christian university, that has the highest or second or third highest student debt ratio. I mean, in terms of the number of students that attend
Hmm.
and the number of debts that they are carrying, the debt that they're carrying out with them when they graduate. Sending our kids out into the world with huge debts on their head, saying, okay, you're going to make a difference in the world. No, you're not. You're going to pay off that debt.
Yeah, for
And
the
that's
next
going to
30
take you 10
years.
years. 30, right, right, right.
Right.
It's good, and that prolonged, it keeps you from buying a house. It keeps you from moving forward. It keeps you from taking a job that's going to make a difference when you're basically going to be sacrificing your future because you're saying, well, I have to get the best paying job that I can because I have to pay off the student debt. It's just a hopeless situation. A college education ought to be a beginning, a launching pad, not an anchor to hold you back and hold you down, all at somebody else's for somebody else's benefit. Not for,
Yeah.
education is something, yes, it's an investment in self. I mean, I thank God saw all three of my kids, graduate from college, and we were able to cancel all of their student debt and take care of all of that. Thank God they got a good start, and I felt like I owed them that, as
Hmm.
but I'm not sure I can do now. I'm looking at my grandkids and I'm going, well, there's no hope for you. I'm looking at them and going, wow, well, what are we going to give them an opportunity? Because no matter how hard their parents work to be able to afford a college education, 15, 20 years from now is ridiculous by tracking where things are going now. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, and I want to share one more slide, and then I want to pivot to that because I've got kind of a deeper philosophical question. I think after I share this slide with you and the audience about where we go from here. I mean, how do we fix this? But let me share this because it really adds this slide real quickly. It really adds to your point. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and talk to the audience and pretending like you can't see it. But this is a percent of balance of 90 plus days delinquent. So there's 4 or 5 different colored lines here. The blue
Yeah.
one is credit cards. The red one is student loans. And there's a couple of others, but it's the student loans, at least for right now, that I would like to focus on, and because it really backs up a lot of what you're saying, Michael. So, as of right now, and this just came out today, as of right now, over 10% of all student loans in America are 90 plus days delinquent. And I go back to that question of if you're 18 years old or you're 22 or whatever that number is, and 1 in 10 of your friends can't even pay for their education that they've already got. What is the why would you want to go do it yourself? Why not just go do something and not get yourself locked in debt for the rest of your life? This is just terrible numbers for our kids.
It's terrible numbers for our kids. It's terrible numbers for us. What the moral consequence of losing hope, and that's what debt does. It causes a person to lose hope. The moral consequence for losing hope is cynicism grows, productivity diminishes, the family formation slows. I mean, we think kids are slowing down now
Hmm.
from not having families. They're going to continue to postpone that, thinking that they can't go into a marriage with debt, which is wise, but is it possible? Is it feasible? Social trust erodes. Political extremism rises. There's a sense of hopelessness, all because the privileged class, and this is not, I'm not a Marxist, and I
Yeah,
don't have
yeah,
any Marxist
yeah.
tendencies or philosophy or anything, but the privileged class, those who can afford, and that's a very small number of people who can actually afford a debt-free college education at these prices, can continue to do that and make it. But the average person, the average American family that's going to now, I was talking to someone today about Harvard University, and most of the Ivy Leagues have a need-based financial
Yeah,
aid system.
yeah,
But they were talking to me about two particular students who have a need-based, and everybody, every family that makes less than $200,000 a year qualifies for a need-based
mm,
scholarship. So your admission into Harvard University is solely based on your ability to compete and do well with their academic setting. Well, I don't agree with everything that Harvard does, but I do agree that their approach that now Harvard is one of those universities that has billions of dollars in
yeah,
endowments and in
yeah,
trusts and
yeah,
so forth,
yeah,
but they're spending it, they're investing it in the future leaders of America. I think that's what higher education should be doing, is
yeah.
investing in future leaders not of America, not diminishing hope and discouraging the workers, the leaders of the future. It's crazy.
So let me ask you, because I do want to dive into that, and I think this is going to get into that deep dive that I love about your show. Um, do we have a responsibility as a country to provide as much as possible a pathway for those who want to get an advanced degree, a bachelor? Well, let's just say it's a bachelor's degree. Should we as a country be helping to support that financially? And let me kind of back that up just a little bit, because there, I mean, how many people, as I was saying earlier, simply don't go to school because of the costs? And you're going to say, well, wait a second, because I'm a conservative. I think that you have a certain self responsibility, which I do, and I know you do too, to take care of yourself and your own life. But we already do that through K through through kindergarten through 12th grade. There is no cost to anybody in this country to go to school for that. Okay, so
Right.
do should we as a country be broadening that out, and maybe you make a junior college free, okay? Or maybe we look even broader than that, and you make a bachelor's degree free at state universities, okay? Again, I'm not suggesting we do it with public universities or private universities, but doesn't that help America? You're not just helping that one person. I mean, if we have a workforce that's coming out there and it's extremely, well educated, wouldn't that just be the best thing for America too? I don't know. What do you think, Mike? I'm just throwing this
It's
out there.
I think it's essential for us to have an educated. I mean, with AI and the advances in technology, the only way that we're going to have a workforce that can still secure jobs right here in America and not,
Hmm.
export all of our jobs is by having a good, strong, hardworking American workforce that are educated. And many of those educations that we're talking about are college education.
Yeah.
But if it can't be afforded, now, every kid, every person shouldn't be expected to go to
No.
college to
No.
make it.
No.
But you're not saying that. We're not saying that.
No.
We're saying,
No. So
hey,
yeah.
but for those who want to, for those who are qualified, shouldn't there be a pathway for them to get ahead without in entrapping them or burdening them with debt for the next 25 years, for the first 25 years after
Yeah.
they graduate? And it's absolutely true.
You know.
If we don't, I think it's immoral for us to expect our culture, our society to continue to advance if we don't have people that we're if we're not educating our children or allowing them to compete at a level commensurate with foreign nationals,
Hmm.
with foreign universities, with others
Yeah.
who will come here, because there are lots of international students that would flood America and pay the tuition in full, in cash,
Yep.
to be educated by some of the finest universities, finest professors. And I mean, we have a history of great universities here. And so why shouldn't we be the beneficiaries of
Yeah.
that? and be exporting instead of exporting that to other countries that can afford to pay the bills. And we don't know where those monies go, right? So these are untaxed. Again, universities don't pay taxes. They're tax free.
Yeah.
They don't pay taxes on their property. They don't pay the same kinds of taxes on their endowments and so forth, their investments. They're allowed to go forward because we believe that that system, the founders believed that that system would help us to educate the next generation. But if they're failing in that morally because it's too expensive, then what are we doing? We price ourselves out of existence.
Yeah, and you brought up the founders, so I think there's a good perspective here because let's say we've got somebody that's watching right now and they're asking themselves, well, once again, okay, why should I have to help support somebody else's kid? And I'm going to go back and let's just look at it from a historical perspective. So in the 1800s, there was no mandatory going to school, right? I mean,
Right.
especially, I mean, most people either had a farm or, especially if they're out in somewhat rural, okay? And if a person was to finish, sixth grade, okay, and basically have basic writing or reading skills, that was unusual. But those same kids, at 12 years old or 13 years old, a sixth grade education or eighth grade at max, would get them somewhere because they were predominantly farmers, or they were going to be they didn't need to have Cal 4 and like 2 years of physics and everything to do what they're going to do. But look how things have changed because now we come into the turn of the century, the 1900s, and now a sixth grade degree doesn't get you that same level of education you need to have that same level of support in society that the 18 you know in the 1800s would have done for through K through 6. So now you've got to get an eighth grade degree, okay? And then you come
Right.
into the 50s, and now that doesn't work. So you're coming into more of a, 11, 12-year high school education up until, the 1960s was the norm. There was not a lot of people out there with even white males with college degrees. And if you did, you pretty much wrote your check. So I,
Right.
I guess one of the things and I'm thinking this through, um, is it now necessary, Michael, for someone to maintain that same lifestyle that our parents would have had in the 60s or the 50s? Will it now be necessary for them to have the minimum requirement of maybe it's just a junior college, okay, a 2-year degree? I don't know, but it certainly seems likely. If you follow that line, it seems likely to me. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, well, I think I love the idea of junior colleges, and by the way, as an educator myself, I see junior colleges and community colleges have having a wonderful value added to
Mm,
communities all around the country. So we shouldn't, diminish their impact because
yeah,
they can truly, truly, truly have a high impact. But I think the overall cost of education has gone much too far, much too fast, and it's unaccountable, right? We can't
yeah,
account for these runaway costs and how expensive it is. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. And I think that's the way we have to view it. And that would be like saying, okay, all of a sudden now shoes are going to be quadrupled in price, no matter what kind of shoe it is. If you're going to import or wear shoes or make shoes in America, it's going to cost you at least $500 a pair. I mean, that's the equivalent to what we're saying. And so
right,
everybody's going to be what? We're going to go around barefoot.
right.
We're going to go back to saying, okay, only the special. No, of course not. Education is essential. It is that kind of essential, and to have good leaders, we need to have them to be able to pursue education to the farthest extent that they can go, right? To
Yeah,
get the most out of that, to receive, to get to their God-given abilities and the ability to do all the and so that's the crime, the tragedy, the thing that upsets me about these statistics are, one, it diminishes our capacity by diminishing our hope, and two, the runaway cost for college education has gone unchecked for so many years, and there's no accountability. And I do honestly, I understood why the president and this administration wanted to do away with the Department of Education. They were basically a loan office. They were basically, kind of servicing the debt and the loans and student loans and so forth. And so that department, that whole um, uh, uh, department has pretty much been diminished, or all but diminished in name only.
Yeah.
And now what we're left with is saying, okay, well, who's going to hold these universities accountable? Who is going to look at them and say, what are you doing? When is there going to be a group that's going to say, hey, what is our responsibility? What is our moral and responsibility
As
to
citizens. Yeah.
educate this generation, for Americans?
Yeah.
Don't they have a responsibility?
I can't agree with you more. I mean, it's and as far as the Department of Education, you and I both grew up with the Department of Education, right? And
Right.
and you know, I don't know if it added value. I think there's a good argument that getting rid of it, there was some benefit to it, but at the same time, there was also things that they did, and as like Pell Grants or managing, as you said, many of those processes that where does that go now? Well, it goes down to the states. Well, that's not necessarily always a positive, right? And so
Right.
I don't know. So let me ask you. I know we've only got a couple more minutes. I want, and I'm
Okay.
going to ask you something very kind of personal, and hopefully you don't take it wrong. Okay, so I'm preparing you. You're a black man that's very well educated, but you did not come from a super wealthy household of people and millionaires. So my question to you is, does the current system where college, getting a 4-year degree, disproportionately affect black men and women versus white men and women? Or do you not think so? I'm genuinely curious of your viewpoint.
Oh, I think it absolutely affects black men and women disproportionately. Because it used to be that all hard work, there was something that you could achieve. And I was able to get a college scholarship, which, that I earned
Hmm. You did.
with blood,
Right.
sweat, and
Right.
tears. I
A lot of
earned.
blood. Yeah.
There's a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, and I was able to do that, but I got a degree, and then went on to get an advanced degree, and went on to get another degree. So I was able to, but it was through learning that I developed the confidence to be able to do the things that I can
Mm.
do now. But I was in my house growing up. It was always, son, work hard, and not you can achieve anything you want to, but you will have an opportunity to show what you can do. That was what we were
Mm.
always told. And it was athletics. The ways to scholarship, the ways to college were athletics or junior college, and then you would win an academic scholarship or do something to get you noticed. And so or take on student debt. And back then, student debt wasn't the same as student debt is now.
No, I
You
mean, look,
know,
we just
it-
proved that, right? We just
oh
proved
my
that on this
goodness.
show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So does it affect the minority communities disproportionately? Yes, it does. But it affects America severely, because what we are diminishing is the capacity of our future. We are diminishing our future leaders.
100%.
We are hindering their growth, hindering
100%.
their spot in the workplace, and imbalancing society, all for greed. Bottom line is greed.
Yeah.
University greed has dried this up. The cost, you cannot tell me that the cost of education, the consumer cost has risen that much, but you cannot tell me that
Mm-mm.
the cost, the absolute dollar for dollar cost of education has risen that much.
No, no, I completely agree with you. And it's We've got to do something about it. I don't know yet what the solution is, but I think we're a lot closer to a solution than a lot of people in Washington D.C. I know
Absolutely.
we've got to wrap up here, folks. If you're watching this, of course you're on YouTube right now. Please subscribe to our channel. It takes you 5 seconds. It doesn't cost anything. You'll get this. You'll get the political arena, the hinge of history. It's a lot of stuff that we're trying to put together. Some really high quality programming with a lot of deep thought. I mean, especially Michael, you just did a wonderful job. I'm really excited about this. I think our first episode out live, I think it just really turned out well. And I hope that the folks that are watching this would see that too, because we do want to have these conversations. These are the conversations that you and I are having right now. And we're going to have some guests on too. But these are the conversations America needs to hear. This is what we need to be talking
Absolutely.
about.
And listen, so my closing line is the American dream begins where hope is restored and hard work once had meaning. Where
Wow.
hard work once had meaning. That's where the American dream really, really begins. And if we say everybody is going to be hitting a glass ceiling, we are diminishing, we are destroying our future.
Yes,
And
we are.
so I thank you for listening, but please like, share, tell everybody that we're here. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis, restoring the American dream. And Brian, it is a wonderful privilege, man, to join with you in
Man,
this
I'm
and
excited
see
about it.
this.
I'm
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
about it. Yeah, this was
See
great.
this.
Thanks everybody. Thanks Michael. And thanks for having me on and let me be a part of this, because this is going to be some fun. Thanks everybody.
Absolutely.
We will see you very soon. And again, got some comments. Leave a comments, but you'll be seeing us again very soon. Thank you. You've been watching Reverend Michael's Restoring the American Dream. The Noble Media social media platforms. Make sure to give us a follow so you can watch this show and many others.
A Noble Media Group member.